When I moved into this supposedly quiet neighborhood, I thought the HOA would just make sure people cut their grass and followed a few basic rules. I had no idea they had the power to ruin your life over flowers. It started with a simple garden project. A few lavender plants in my backyard, nothing crazy. But the next morning, I found a letter in my mailbox that would change everything. You are in violation of HOA regulations. Fine. $500 per plant. Total. $1,500. I laughed at first. Surely this was a joke, right? Wrong. That was just the beginning. By the end of the week, I was staring down a $50,000 fine. Yes, $50,000 for planting the wrong flowers. And the HOA? They weren't done with me yet. The HOA had a rule for everything. Not just plants, but mulch color, fence height, even the angle of your garden lights. Roses? Fine. Tulips? Fine. Lavender? Absolutely forbidden. At first I thought it was petty, until the fines started coming. Every morning, another letter, a threat, a demand. The more I ignored them, the louder they got. And it wasn't just about the money. They wanted total control. Inspectors came to measure my lawn, examine my plants, even count the stones in my garden path. One inspector literally had a clipboard and a ruler to check the spacing of my flower beds. Each letter made it clear. The more I resisted, the worse it would get. My backyard, my house. Suddenly, it felt like a battlefield. And I realized that if I wanted to survive this, I would need a plan. Because the HOA wasn't just enforcing rules. They were trying to intimidate me. And I was done being scared. The fines weren't enough. The HOA wanted absolute control. Inspectors started visiting my yard multiple times a week. They measured every plant, inspected the mulch, counted rocks along the pathway. One of them even made a note about the angle of my garden gnome. Yes, my gnome. Letters kept coming. First, polite warnings, then angry threats, then legal notices. Suddenly, they were claiming I owed $50,000. Yes, $50,000. For some lavender plants and a few backyard decorations, neighbors whispered. Some were scared. Others laughed quietly, secretly relieved it wasn't them this time. But no one dared confront the HOA. They had a reputation for intimidation and never backing down. Then came the HOA meeting. I showed up, trying to keep calm. The board sat there, eyes cold, ready to make an example of me. They voted to place a lien on my house. My mortgage lender was notified. For a moment, I felt the weight of it, the possibility that my own home could be taken over some plants I loved. But in that moment, I also realized something important. If they thought I would quietly give in, they had another thing coming. This wasn't just about plants anymore. This was about power, and I had decided I was going to turn it back on them. Hey, I wasn't going to let them bully me. Not my garden, not my home. I started by digging deep into the HOA's rules, bylaws, and local ordinances. Every line, every fine, every clause. I discovered something crucial. They had no legal authority to impose these insane fines or place a lien over backyard plants. They had been bluffing, and I could call it. So I documented everything. Every threatening letter, every inspector visit, every ridiculous comment from the HOA board. I even got statements from neighbors who had quietly witnessed the absurdity, ready to back me up if needed. The next HOA meeting was my moment. I walked in with a folder thick with evidence. Photos, receipts, and timelines laid out every single fine, every step of their harassment. The board tried to intimidate me, acting confident. But for the first time, I held the power. I calmly explained that if they pursued any further action, all of their absurd behavior would be exposed publicly and potentially nullified legally. Faces turned pale. Murmurs filled the room. They had gone too far. They had tried to control me with fear. But now that fear had flipped. The HOA had met someone who wasn't backing down. By the end of the meeting, they had no choice. The fines were dropped, the lien was canceled, and my backyard, it was mine. to plant whatever I wanted, with my lavender proudly front and center. Sometimes patience and a little research is all it takes to turn the tables. Just when I thought the battle was over, I received a community-wide notice from the HOA. At first, I ignored it. I assumed it was another thinly veiled threat. But as I read it, my jaw dropped. The HOA admitted that all fines previously issued without proper legal basis would be nullified. Not only that, any money already collected had to be reimbursed. Suddenly, the $50,000 I'd feared losing wasn't just erased, it was coming back. And the very people who had tried to intimidate me, control my yard, and scrutinize every plant were about to face the consequences themselves. And the story didn't end there. Turns out, some of the board members had personally pocketed the fines. Now, they were being forced to pay it all back, out of their own pockets. The same people who had sent inspectors to measure my flowers, counted the stones in my garden, and lectured me on the proper height of my gnome were now publicly exposed. Neighbors whispered, some chuckled, others shook their heads in disbelief. The petty tyrants who thought they could control everything suddenly found themselves humiliated and financially accountable for their own absurdity. My lavender, once the forbidden plant, became a symbol of victory. I planted it proudly in front of my yard for everyone to see. Every morning I walked past it, knowing that the HOA had failed, and that the petty rules they obsessed over had backfired spectacularly. What started as intimidation, fines, and harassment had turned into the most satisfying revenge. I kept my home, got reimbursed, and proved that sometimes patience and strategy are all you need to make justice bloom. And the best part? I didn't just win. The HOA had lost in front of the entire neighborhood. Sometimes the smallest rebellion can be the sweetest victory.